Now we have Professor Paranjape, whom you know is a professor of English, Center for English Studies, School of Languages, Literature and Cultural Studies. This is JNU. May I request you, Professor Paranjape, please.
Thank you, sir. What I propose to do is to speak on Swami Vivekananda's thoughts on education. This hasn't been worked on very much, but I'll tell you a very interesting story about this in a bit. But before that, let me give you a kind of overview of what I'll do in the next half an hour or so. I propose to speak on Swamiji's philosophy of education, which is what he meant by true education. What is the goal and purpose of education? Then I also want to speak about the methodology, like how do you attain that goal? The pedagogical strategies or traditions, or what are the ways to get educated in the way in which Swamiji actually thought of education. And finally, I want to look at Swamiji's agenda for modern India in terms of his ideas of the social and political utility of education. Why education is the key to both development of the individual and of society. So these are the three aspects of Swamiji's ideas on education that I want to touch on. Swamiji didn't sit down and say, now I'm going to write a book on education. So there's no systematic treatise or essay on education that he wrote, unlike some other people, like Sri Aurobindo, right? But his remarks are scattered throughout his many writings. And it's a job to collect them and systematize them. And I don't want to be, taking credit for doing this, because someone else did it before me. And that's the story I wanted to tell you about. There was a man called Avinashi Lingam, who was in the freedom struggle. He was close to Gandhiji. And when he was in jail in the 40s, he thought that one way, you see, jail itself was a school for many of these people who struggled against British imperialism. It was a time of both some leisure as well as reflection, but also a time of great learning. And you could be actually in contact with great souls, other people who were jailed along with you. And even as recently as the emergency, there are so many stories of people who learned in proximity of the great leaders, you see, a number of things that you can never learn outside in a university. So his school was jail, and Avinashi Lingam, actually wrote to Mahatma Gandhi asking for his blessings. And on 22nd July 1941, Gandhiji wrote back to him and said, "Dear Avinashi, surely Swami Vivekananda's writings need no introduction from anybody. They make their own irresistible appeal." And with this blessing, Avinashi Lingam proceeded to cull out or select key passages in 1942. Remember Quit India movement. That's the context of this little book he wrote on Swamiji's ideas of education. So I want to remember that book today on Swamiji's birthday, which is a very auspicious day for all of us and for modern India itself. Swamiji said, and we all know this chant, or we all know this mantra, and he said, Uttishtata Jagrata Prapya Varan Nibodhata, right? What does it mean, And this is, of course, from the Kathopanishad, and this is what Yama tells Nachiketa, and it is the first part of the Kathopanishad, section 3 and verse 14. And Uttishtata, so wake up, that is arise. Jagrata, again, wake up. Prapya Varan Nibodhata. So vara, this vara, what does it mean? It can mean many different things. But this is the ablative, the fifth declension in Sanskrit, Varan, Nibodhata. So, but what it is really saying is that awake, arise, and having come in contact with great teachers, Nibodhata. Now that ni is very interesting. When you put ni in front of both, of course, means to learn. We have the same word, in Hindi as well. Iska mujhe bodh nahi hai, gyan nahi hai, things like that. And of course, the next statement is equally famous, where Yama says to Nachiketa, he says, Kshurasya dhara nishita, Duratyaya durgam pathas tat kavayo vadanti. So then he says, like the razor's edge, which also becomes the title of Somerset Maugham's book on India. And there is a very interesting chapter where the narrator meets somebody like Ramana Maharishi in that book, razor's edge. So that comes from the Kathopanishad. But I take this as a kind of motto or a kind of summary of what Swamiji actually meant by his philosophy of education. And I'll explain that in a bit. But I'd also like you to think for a moment about this curious, if not coincidence, this curious historical fact that almost every great social reformer from the mid-19th century onwards had something to do with education. They all experimented with education. We know that Tagore created, Vishwa Bharati, Shantiniketan, right? It started as a little school, as a pathashala, where Brahmabandha Upadhyaya was the teacher. And you know that Swami Dayanand Saraswati experimented with education, and Anglo-Vedic schools that he founded are famous all over. We know Mahatma Gandhi came up with Nai Taaleem. He also experimented with education. Then think about Sri Aurobindo and the mother. They had also many educational ideas. They came up with the notion of free progress. And there are hundreds of schools, including Mothers International School in Delhi, which seem to follow that idea. Then J. Krishnamurti, so many schools, the Valley School, Rishi Valley School, Rajghat School in Varanasi, in Kashi. Now, the question that comes to your mind, anyone's mind, is why did all these people think about education? And in a way, the answer is simple. They all wanted to create a new human being, from the ashes of colonialism, this encounter that India had with the West. And they believed that a new India could be born out of the crucible of this extremely difficult historical conjuncture, right? Where after years and years, in fact centuries of slavery, India was rising again, or at least had the opportunity to rise again. And they felt that education was the key to transformation, to human transformation. And they thought that we have to create a new kind of education which can give rise to a new kind of human being. Swami Vivekananda, thought of education. What did education mean to him? And this is what he says. In fact, Swamiji says that, and I'm quoting, education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man. Now, this is the summary of Swamiji's approach to education. And this summary, or this quintessence of his approach to education, is actually derived from the Vedic approach, which in the Vedic approach, as we heard earlier, Jiva and Shiva are actually the same. There is only the veil of illusion, you see. So there is Pashu, Pasha, and Pashupati, Shiva. So how do you go from being a Pashu, which is like an animal, which is what we are? We are in an animal body. We are born out of an animal kind of reproduction. And there is the animal in us, okay? Eating, drinking, reproducing, sleeping. About 80% of our energy goes in these activities. If you keep a timetable and see, main kya kar raha hu, din bhar mein, and you'll see 80-90% you're only doing these things. And earning a living is also the same thing, because we are doing it in order to eat and live comfortably, right? So there is the animal in us, and there is this pasha. Pasha is like the obstacles, the veil, or the noose in this case. We are all tied. Freud talked about our drives. We are driven. We are not rational beings. As Renaissance people and others thought in the Enlightenment, we often make irrational choices driven by our desires and fears, right? So Freud said the unconscious is what is controlling us, our appetites, our desires, and we cloak them, etc. And then there's this third state when we know who we are, then we can be Pashupati, the head, the controller of this Pashu. That's why all the goddesses have animals. And look at Durga, what a fierce animal she has, the tiger. And she's going to control it. She has so much power, the tiger in you. You have to control the monster in you, right? And then you become Shiva. So the Vedic approach is that you're already perfect. Nothing has to be brought from outside. Like the seed contains the entire flower, every zygote contains the seeds of a fully liberated, awakened Buddha. Now, how long it's going to take to reach there is a different point, right? Some people believe, even Christians believed long ago that there was reincarnation. Then in the 6th century, they said no. And they banished that idea. But many people believe we don't end with the death of the body, right? So we don't know how long it takes to reach perfection. But what Swamiji is saying, that we are already inherently perfect. So please don't ever mistreat anybody saying he's ignorant or she's foolish. Nobody's foolish. Everybody is actually this divine being and already the ever-perfect Supreme Self. But, so what does the teacher do if nothing can be taught? The teacher is a facilitator. The teacher is not somebody who is injecting material into an empty box. You know, like Locke had the idea of the tabula rasa, means blank slate. A child is born with a blank slate, aap usme kuch bhi likhiye. That's not true. The child has already so many things. वो निहित होता है उसके अंदर. And they surface after some time, including amazing talents. Suddenly, the person starts singing, or they have a musical propensity, or they become an artist, and you say, where did this come from, etc. So, education is not bringing in something from outside, but it is the encouragement to manifest what is already inside you. Okay? And a good teacher is like a coach, is a facilitator, somebody who encourages you, right, to reach your full potential. Now, so Swamiji's whole emphasis is on positive pedagogy, you know, and let me quote him, we should give positive ideas. Negative ideas only weaken people. You know, this is what Swamiji said. And the point is, for Swamiji, weakness was sin. He said there is no sin but weakness. When you're weak, you'll do all kinds of wrong things. So his mantra was to inculcate positive ideas. Goodness is strength. Weakness is sin. That was, and he says later, don't worry about the Gita. Go and play football. So he had the integral idea of education, which Aurobindo later picked up. Swamiji says if you can give them positive ideas, people will grow up to be men and learn to stand on their own legs. So this idea of Swavalamban, Swaraj, self-dependency, not be paradheen, not be constantly dependent on others. So he hated the slavish kind of education which the British had given us, which we still suffer from. I tell you, अगर बाहर से छाप नहीं मिलता तो यहाँ भी कोई आपको नहीं पूछेगा, हिंदुस्तान में भी. You need to be recognized outside first, and this is true of everybody, whether it's Ravi Shankar, Mother Teresa, any Nobel laureate, any writer. पहले वहाँ से लगना चाहिए, मोहर वहाँ से लगेगी. So we are a slave country even today. Swamiji said, slavish education will destroy your soul. And that is why, for him, education was not just information. It was the building of character. So this maryada is what the education should teach you. What is, vidhi nishedh is the heart of dharma. What is to be avoided and what is to be approved. But the point is that today we talk about value education, but Swamiji clearly said, education is not, I'm quoting him, education is not the amount of information that is put into your brain and runs riot there, undigested all your life. We must have life-building, man-making, character-making assimilation of ideas. Assimilation is more important than information. The point is that contact with the teacher for Swamiji was crucial. Right? And he said wrong education is, I'm quoting, getting by heart, mugging, getting by heart the thoughts of others in a foreign language and stuffing your brain with them and taking some university degree, you consider yourself educated. Gandhiji used to say that a peasant in India at that time, there was very low literacy, you know. He said, "वो साक्षर नहीं है," but that doesn't mean he's not educated. He may not know how to sign his signature, but he's very educated because he knows what's right and wrong. He knows Ramcharitmanas. He may know something else. She may know something else. She may know the grandmother stories. She knows how to suffer. She knows how to fast. She knows how to bring up children. How can you call such a person uneducated? So, because education means to build character. It's not to just have information. And this is all the more important today because every bit of information is available on the internet. So your child will tell you before you know. Even the names of words you don't want the child to know, they've already looked it up. They'll say, "Papa, this is what it means. Why are you trying to not use that word? I know what it means." So that's not education, according to Swamiji. Now, what is the method to train yourself? You know, this is what I said. Now I'm coming to the second part. So the first part is, what is the purpose of education? The purpose of education is to realize yourself, the perfection that is already in you. The purpose of education is not to merely get information, but to build character, to become a good human being, to find a meaningful life, right? Now, how do you do it? What is the pedagogy? One way is to find the right teachers and learn from them through contact. The teacher must also learn by example. He should or she should set an example. And you know, two people you cannot fool, your children and your students. You can never fool them. They will always look through your pretenses. If you tell your child, "Don't lie," and you're lying, they won't respect you. They know, कहने की बात है. They're just telling me don't lie, but they are lying all the time. So you have to practice it, and only then people will have faith in you. Anyhow, but what is the key method? The key method for Swamiji was concentration. This is what he said. There is only one method by which to attain knowledge, that which is called concentration. The very essence of education is concentration of mind, from the lowest to the highest, lowest man to the highest yogi, all have to use the same method to attain knowledge, concentration. And now he comes to how you need to concentrate. Then you're getting into Raj Yoga. In fact, these were the first little books he wrote in New York based on his lectures. And by Raj Yoga, he means Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And he says, all success in any line of work depends on concentration. It's not only in spiritual matters. Whether it's in art, science, industry, commerce, business, in any field of life, success requires great concentration, great training of the mind, great application of your skills, right? And the perfection of the instruments of knowledge. What are the instruments of knowledge? They are your five senses, plus your mental capacity, buddhi, right? Vivek, all of these are your instruments of knowledge. But how do you perfect the instruments of knowledge? How do you know how to see correctly, hear correctly, smell correctly, taste, etc.? Because we make errors because of our senses. And Swamiji says, through purification. And he actually says brahmacharya. You need brahmacharya. Now, what does it mean? It doesn't simply mean, many people think brahmacharya means celibacy. Celibacy is a part of it, but what it really means is the way of the vast. So without self-restraint, you can never attain anything. So self-restraint. So if you're married, it would mean stick to one partner. It doesn't mean don't have sex with your wife, right? But that is also brahmacharya. That is also a form of chastity. Or your partner. I mean, if you don't believe in marriage, that's okay. But the whole thing is, controlled desire leads to the highest results. I'm quoting Swamiji. Controlled desire, not suppressed desire. Controlled desire. So, because desire is this great energy. In fact, if there was no desire, there would be no creation. There would be no cosmos. There would be no birth. There would be absolutely no trees, no plants. Everything is based on desire, as you know. The ordering of desire leads to immense power and concentration. And in the end, Freud also said that. Freud said, how do you balance between complete rejection and suppression and complete indulgence? So there's the id and there is the superego. And only in between, that is your, Shurasya dhara. That is the razor's edge between the two extremes that you find, as it were, the solution to happiness. Because if you always suppress all your desires, you'll never be happy. So Swamiji is saying this, brahmacharya means the ordering and control of desire. It doesn't mean only celibacy. We can discuss it. Then he says Shraddha or devotion. So Swamiji says the idea of true Shraddha must be brought back once more to us. The faith in our own self. So not just faith in others. You have to trust yourself. The faith in ourselves must be reawakened, and then only the problems which face our country will gradually be solved by ourselves. Then the third aspect is good habits. Swamiji had some bad habits, by the way. He used to smoke. And we don't like to talk about it, you see. But it's a fact. And there are books which talks about this. But anyhow, the real point is to develop character, you also need good habits. This is the point. And what Swamiji said is the only way to counter bad habits is by cultivating good ones. So character is repeated habits, and repeated habits alone can reform character. Now, some people like J. Krishnamurti disagreed. They didn't want one conditioning to be replaced by another conditioning. They wanted the conditioned person to become a free person. But Swamiji is saying you should have good habits. And good habits, create, according to him, good leaders. A good leader, according to him, is one who had a personality which was capable of influencing others. And he said, we are all bundles of energy. And your energy can be enhanced through the science of yoga, which is the secret of education. Again, I am quoting Swamiji here. And he said that a person with a good character, he said, is someone who is like a blazing fire. Because in that blazing fire, all the bad qualities get burnt out. And you can remember the very first opening lines of the Rig Veda, Agnim Ile Purohitam, this fire inside. So what Swamiji was doing was awakening the fire inside a country which was completely colonized and disheartened, right? And hopeless. And that's why he's saying, Uttishtata Jagrata. Get up, come on, get on with it. Don't give up. That was his, you might say, Mahamantra. And it's very interesting how Swamiji, he wanted to substitute the idea of the flute playing Krishna in Vrindavan with the idea of Mahavira, that is Hanuman. That he wanted that kind of idea. He said, stop being, and we may not like it from a modern gender perspective. He didn't want Indian men to be effeminate, and weak. He said, be strong, come on, go play football, build your muscles. And if you go to the Swami Vivekananda Memorial in Kolkata, which is his home, there was a gymnasium inside his home. So he was a well-built young man. And he says, I'm quoting him, he says, we need more rajas in India because our sattva is not sattva, it is only tamas. Right? It is sloth, hopelessness, masquerading as sattva. And he says, what we need, the damaru and horn have to be sounded, not the flute. Drums are to be beaten so as to raise the deep and martial notes with Mahavira on our lips, and shouting, Hara Hara Vyom Vyom. The quarters are to be reverberated, unquote. And so, he said, young men must be strong, religion will come afterwards. So, you see, these are things that Swamiji said which are very important. Now, I want to come to the last part of my talk, which is what Swamiji believed when it came to the political and social utility or responsibility of education. And one of the great things about his life is the immense love and concern and sympathy he had for the poor, as we heard, His heart bled for the poor of India, frankly. And that's why when his brother disciples said, why are you founding this mission? Look, even the idea of mission comes from the West, right? You become missionaries, you go and serve society. You know, Swami Yogananda said, look, didn't our master teach us to realize ourselves? And he says, how dare you put a limit on Sri Ramakrishna? Do you mean he only meant that? What about Daridra Narayan? Look at these people. They are so wretched. They don't have enough to eat. Are you going to sit in a cave and meditate when the country is going to the dogs? And he says the intensest love that humanity has ever known has come from religion. You know, like in the name of Christ, so many people have done so much out of love for the poorest. So, of course, he also condemns religion for creating a bloodbath. So he's a critic of religion, but he says basically that you have to feel for the poor and the downtrodden. And so basically, Swamiji laid a great emphasis on the education of women. We heard that. That is why he told Sister Nivedita, or Nivedita, because she was dedicated, to do something for women's education in India. And he wanted sannyasis and other dedicated people to wander about and share their knowledge with the masses. And one more quotation and then I'll end. He says to the privileged people, you know, in his Kumbhakonam address, in the Calcutta address, he says, do you not feel, he's telling these privileged Bhadralok, do you not feel the millions and millions of the descendants of gods and of sages have become next door to the brutes? Do you not feel that millions are starving today and millions have been starving for ages? Do you not feel the ignorance that has come over the land as a dark cloud? Does it not make you restless? Does it not make you sleepless? Has it not gone into your blood, coursing through your veins, becoming consonant with your heartbeats? He's a poet. Has it not made you almost mad? So, friends, I want to end on that true education should make you almost mad with this passion, not just the passion for knowledge and self-transformation, but also for the passion to share this knowledge and transform the most underprivileged of the people who come in contact with us. Thank you so much. Thank you.